Welcome to the gun room. The old celebration police are out the back. With me in the gun room, we've got no Jay, we've got no Mitch, but we have got Paul, the voice of reason, the voice of balance. How are you, Paul?
Delighted to be on the show again, Tom. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to an interesting discussion. Pity Jay and Mitch can't join us, but I'm sure there's so much to get through from the weekend's action. I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion as well.
Oh, it was Pat, wasn't it? It was loads of things. First off, a bit of a strange one. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang was threatened with firearms, iron bars, and they apparently was even beaten up, and they threatened his wife all to run off with some jewels from the safe. We wish him well. He's no longer our player, but that doesn't stop us caring for him and his family, and we wish them all well. Sad to hear as well that Jez, a fellow podcaster, and his wife have been attacked for their views, their negative views, supposedly, on Mikel Arteta's reign. I can't see any reason for that at all. We've all got different views, exactly. Points of view. I don't see why he should come up against that type of treatment.
No, I mean, fan debate is part and parcel of football, and there's lots of Evertonian fans I might not agree with, but I do totally respect their opinion, and it's coming from a place of default feeling. So yeah, I mean, attacking fellow fans is just, to me, it's never really on.
It's absolutely mad. Well, it's another pod, another shirt, pink, red and white, black, and now we've got Jamaican Jigsaw. Only £99 to £115. We might talk about shirts later on. Anyway, let's get to that game. It's had some sort of weird feedback, hasn't it, really, over the last sort of day or so. People kind of the celebration police being out and about saying that, it was only Fulham, newly promoted Fulham, which we'll try and get back to at the end of the pod. But for me, I mean, it was a good result, especially because we found our character base. It was always going to be interesting, Paul, when we went behind, because we've had the rub of the green so far.
Yeah, and apparently, Tom, I don't know if you saw the stat today, but it's the first time since December 13 that Arsenal have conceded the first goal in the first half and come back to win in the second half, which is it's quite a long period of time. Yeah, I mean, I know we had some communication at half time during the game, so I watched it back at home here in Liverpool, and to me, I think you learn more from those games than what you do against a 3-0 possession beating Bournemouth. I think you learn far more about the resilience of the team, the character of the team. And make no mistake, Fulham under Marco Silva are a pretty decent side. They should have beaten Liverpool in the first game of the season. They're a strong side. They've always got a goal scoring threat in Mitrovic. They battle hard. They got a really good left back in Anthony Robinson, who's ex-Everton, who I rated highly when he was at Everton. So they got the makings of a good competitive team there. And also, the worst time, in my opinion, to play a newly promoted team is the first kind of 6-7 games of the season. They're still on a high. They still got the promotion bounce. The fans are behind them. They're full of optimism. So, yeah, it was, in my opinion, it was a really tough call for Arsenal, a really tough test. Now, and you don't want to get in a situation where you get really frustrated. The crowd gets frustrated because chances are being squandered. But I thought the crowd stuck with the team, and even when they were one goal behind, there wasn't a feeling of disillusionment or resentment creeping in. And I like the way Ramsdale tried to rally the crowd to get them behind the team as well. And I think most fans appreciate it. Okay, we're losing it, but we've been on the front foot for most of the game. And I just think Arsenal upped their game another gear in the last half hour in particular. And to me, once the equaliser went in, there was only going to be one team that's going to win the game. But it was a huge test of Arsenal's resilience, capabilities, a huge examination of, can you come back and go a goal behind in what is a London derby? And I think, from every level of the assessments and the challenge that I put towards them in the game, it was a really, really strong performance. And you get 3 points for winning 2-1. You get 3 points for winning 9-0. But sometimes the 2-1 victory teaches you far more about the size.
Absolutely. Incidentally, Paul, it was Mikel Arteta. I love the bit of the stat that he brought in there. He's bringing stats now. He's bringing his own stats in a briefcase. Mikel Arteta's 100th game. Yeah. So how does that stack up? Mikel Arteta has won 53, drawn 16, and lost 31. Put that up against Arsene Wenger. God bless him. Wenger won 54, drawn 30, and lost 16. Incidentally, Paul, the lineup is another thing to take on board. The lineup when we played Fulham 16 months ago was Ryan, Bellerin, Holding, Gabriel, Saka, El Neni, Xhaka, Ceballos, Smith Rowe, Martinelli, and Lacazette. That's a massive change round, and I think from afar, a lot of people aren't getting the groundwork, the spade work that Arteta's had to do to shift it all around.
Yeah, and I think he's at the moment he seems to be showing the indication that the blend between experienced and young players can be really difficult to marry and you know, for it to be successful. But at the moment, he's making all the right calls in terms of the starting 11 he's putting out. Good use of substitutions on Saturday as well. You know, bringing on Nketiah on 60 minutes gives him enough time to change the game, because I always get really frustrated when you're looking for a goal and the manager throws on a strike with about 7 minutes to go. Well, they haven't really got a chance to go to pace and speed of the game. So, you know, Nketiah with more deadly finishing could have made a more convincing victory. But despite that, his stress, the fact there was another attacker to occupy the Fulham back four really made a difference, had an impact on the game. And you know, I think we forget as well that Arteta's the youngest manager in the Premier League, and you know, given that background, that you know, given that when you think like, yeah, I hate to say this, Jurgen Klopp took about 5, 6, 7 years to get Liverpool to where they are now, and I think you know it takes time for teams to progress, and certainly you know. A top four finish and challenging for the title of the season would be a massive indication of the progress that Arsenal have made under Arteta.
Absolutely. Right, let's go through that lineup. It was Aaron Ramsdale, Ben White, Willow Saliba, Gabriel, Kieran Tierney, Mohamed El Neni, Granit Xhaka, Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Martinelli, and Gabriel. We like a Gabriel, don't we?
We do. You can't beat a team of angels.
Yeah, just get them all in. And Gabriel Jesus, a Jesus even. There was no party and no Zinchenko, apparently ankle and knee injuries. So both the other guys replaced. They didn't quite hit the gas, did they, Paul? El Neni and Tierney, they were quite off the boil.
Yeah, I thought El Neni was quite a weak link in midfield. I mean, obviously, you watch Arsenal far more than me, so it's kind of wondering why Smith Rowe maybe hadn't been given opportunity in that game. Whether you know, his role didn't quite fit into that lineup or not, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, but Kieran Tierney, I've always rated the fullback, but I just thought on Saturday he wasn't quite up to his normal standards. And I think on a previous pod, we've kind of been quite enthusiastic about Zinchenko's contribution and what he brings to the team in terms of pace, commitments, etc. And I think you saw as well, you know, when he joined in the celebrations for the winning goal, how committed he is to the Arsenal cause and the team spirit that Arteta built into the squad there. So, yeah, I think even when you win, you're going to have one or two players who don't quite perform to the top level. As long as you're 7 or 8 who perform to the top level, you've probably got enough to see over there. So, yeah, maybe you could argue against a stronger team, the weakness El Neni showed in midfield could have been taken far more advantage of. But, you know, it was a difficult fixture, as I said at the start of the pod. It was a good victory, and it was a great decision by Arteta to take Tierney off after 60 minutes because apparently he wasn't as effective as his manager hoped he would be, and that kind of changed the game.
Yeah, I think let's be fair to them. El Neni hasn't had a sniff. I think even in pre-season he was used very sparingly, and Tierney's come back from a bit of an injury-prone sort of bout, hasn't he? He's out more than he's in, so he's probably full of ring rust. As I said, there's more of these types of games to come, and the expectation levels are huge. Are Arsenal fans kind of managing that, Paul, or do you think that we're getting a bit beyond ourselves?
Well, I mean, you probably have more of a feel for that than what I would, Tom. But I think you know, if you'd said to your fan base at the start of the season, after 4 games, we're going to have a 100% record and be top of the table, then you know, I'm not sure everyone would have said that's going to happen. But it has, And it's one of these things that the longer you keep the unbeaten run going, and that's why Saturday was such a big test coming back from a goal behind. Keep the unbeaten run going, keep the optimism going, get the belief into the team that they can come back from conceding the goal, and then you're well on the way to mount an effective challenge this season. So, if I was having one concern about Arsenal, I think it would be looking at the options on the bench on Saturday. And I was kind of comparing them to the options a certain other North London team had on Sunday on their bench. And to me, there seems to be more options for your rival team than what they did for Arsenal. Now, whether Arteta is looking to bring in more reinforcements during the before the transfer deadline arrives, I'm not sure. But certainly, given how intense this first 7-8 weeks of the season is going to be, where most teams are playing 2 games a week, I think it's important to have intense depth in the squad, particularly in this season when 5 substitutions can be used.
I think it has got better, the depth on the bench, because I mean, last season it used to be kind of like you'd have El Neni warming up, and there'd be one other, so it might be Nketiah or whatever. But at least you can look there now and you think, oh, Nketiah can come on. And I do like this 5 sub rule. I know it's had its knockers and all that sort of thing, but I think in the modern game, to prevent injuries and with all these cup competitions going on, you've got to have 5 subs, surely. And I'm sure Arteta is going to do something. We had a lot of possession in that first half, Paul. It ended 0-0. If there were any complaints from me as an Arsenal fan, it was just that we weren't really clinical in front of goal. I think this match could have ended. We could have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 to the good, but we're just not clinical. And that's been our problem for a long time. And I said to you in a text, if we had 2 Jesuses, we'd be fine, because he'd be setting up for himself, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
But he set things up, and there was no one to put it in.
That's a fair point, and I think Jesus' contribution to the side is not just about creating opportunities for forward and scoring goals. His all-round play is hugely impressive. He's putting tackles in the midfield. He's winning back possession. He's leading by example. So even when he's not a goal-scoring threat himself, he's still creating opportunities for others. And every time he gets the ball in the opposition penalty, you can just see defenders are terrified of what he's going to do. Is he going to run at me? Is he going to dribble me? Is he going to play a 1-2 and get past me? So he's always going to be a handful. I know every good striker has 1 or 2 games where they don't score. Maybe that was that was the game for him on Saturday. But yeah, I think given the amount of possession and chances that Arsenal creating, you always felt that the goal would come at some stage. So it was quite surprising when Fulham took the lead against the run of play. But I'd be far more concerned if the side weren't creating the chances, if the side didn't have possession. And certainly, I think you saw when Nketiah came on, the attacking threat kind of went up a different level.
Yeah, I thought Nketiah, he's had people saying that he didn't really do much and he missed 3 sitters, but he was a real handful. I think that's one of his better performances in an Arsenal shirt. He did have a little bit of a run in one of the cups and he was good there. Right, let's move on to the 36th minute. Ben White got a yellow card for the type of tackle your nan might put in at the bargain sales in January. What did you make of that? I was just like, why are you booking him?
Yeah, I think sometimes the inconsistency amongst referees is just increasing frustration from week to week. And I know it's an easy street to bang on about, but yeah, to me, it just seemed quite an overzealous response to that level of challenge, really.
45 minutes, Jesus got into a bit of a tangle with Palfina after a tackle on Saka. He needs to be a bit more disciplined and a little bit more careful, doesn't he? Great player, love him to bits, but he's really got to walk away when you're getting these type of things. Otherwise, he's going to get a booking.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was quite intriguing to watch, because I don't really remember Jesus getting so heated when playing for Man City in the past 2 or 3 seasons. So you could put a positive spin on that and say, well, is this not an example of his commitment, or he's balls into the team ethos? He's standing up for his fellow players. Yes, you're right. It's a risky strategy because the last thing you want is your best player on the pitch, your main goal scoring threat, to have to leave the field early because of a couple of rash challenges. But you could take the view that actually this is quite good. He's committed to the cause. He's a team player. He's not being an individual. So I'm sure a quiet word at half time, point out to him, look, okay, that was good, but back off and tackles a little bit, and then he will hopefully learn from that experience.
I like to see a little bit of that. I like to see a little bit of spice.
Yeah. I think particularly when the game's tied at 0-0, it's coming to half time, and you worry whether there might be some frustration from the fans. I think as well as the tunnel. It's good to see a player put in a bit of effort, and I also think it's a good example to set to the rest of the team as well.
56 minutes. Mitrovic, which was probably their best player on the park, wasn't he? Really, he was a real handful. He's a big guy. He's solid. He's a nasty type of player as well, isn't he? He likes to get in there and upset you. He caught Gabriel napping. It was a terrible mistake, wasn't it?
It was, but I mean, I think it partly came from the pass from Saka, which really put Gabriel in a difficult situation, because you look at that period of play again. I mean, Saka's over on the right-hand touchline. He's got options to hit it long down the wing, and then he kind of turns back and hits a looping lob of a pass into the penalty area. Now, you can see Mitrovic's reaction. He's thinking straight away, Gabriel's going to have some trouble dealing with this instantly. Now, yeah, he did delay a bit too long, and I accept that. But it was I think the pass from Saka put him in a really, really difficult situation. Yes, he could have dealt with it better. And when you're playing against Mitrovic, you really have got to use your strength and your upper body strength to stand up and not dig off the ball. Otherwise, he's just going to bundle you over and take the chance. So, yeah, I'd say 75% Gabriel, 25% Saka. But yeah, it was a daft goal to give away. And particularly at a time when you could just sense a bit of frustration was coming in, that the opening goal hadn't arrived for the home team.
It was quite weird, really, because he didn't shut him down, did he? He had about 3 touches on it, and he opened the door for him because he went side on and he couldn't get a touch behind that ball, and Mitrovic was away. But as you say, it was a bad ball into him, so I think we've got to give him something for that. And he looked genuinely upset, but it was nice that Odegaard went up and said, don't worry about it. I mean, that's a real captain's thing. Do you think we can borrow?
And as well, Tom, I like the way he put his shares over his head straight away after that mistake, didn't he? Because some players would start pointing at other teammates and trying to put the blame with them, but he took responsibility, which I thought was a good sign.
Yeah, again, the crowd didn't get on him as well, which I liked. Do you think, on the size of Mitrovic and the problems that he created, do you think Arsenal could do with a different option, someone a bit bulky, a bit bigger, someone who offers something different?
Yeah, I've always been a huge advocate of a plan B for teams. When sometimes if the neat intricate footwork is not paying dividends, sometimes you need to give the defenders a different threat to cope with. And certainly, if you're hanging on, say a 0-0 playing against Arsenal, you dealt with Professor Jesus, and then suddenly the last 20 minutes, Mitrovic comes on to play up front with them. You sort of think, oh God, this is going to make the closing minutes of this game really, really difficult to manage. So yeah, I mean, I've always rated Mitrovic. I mean, I know there was some criticism level that some first poor tally the last time Fulham win the Premier League, but that was a pretty average Fulham team, to be honest. But I think he also, but I mean, he's kind of the type of player I think who thrives on playing in front of a crowd as well. So yeah, I mean, to me, he's always been a good forward. He's always been a goal threat, and if he were to be available, I think any team in the top 6 would be looking at him as an option.
It's quite nice to see that you were talking about Fulham the last time we met, and that was managed by Scott Parker. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see he's doing his magic down at Bournemouth, isn't it?
Yeah, but I wish he could have maybe delayed using his magic for another week or so instead of that calamitous collapse at that place across Stanley Park. And it's just, I mean, I just felt so distraught for Bournemouth fans. But if you've made that journey, 450 miles, 500 miles, to see your team just absolutely collapse 9-0, it's I mean, to me, that is just totally unacceptable. And the first thing the Bournemouth board needs to be doing is reimbursing those fans for that journey and their support, because no fan of a Premier League club should have to put up with that as an away performance, given the riches in the league.
Yeah, absolutely. 64 minutes, and who else but Martin Odegaard came to the rescue, answering his critics. What did you make of that goal? I know it took a deflection, but he's an epic player, isn't he? I know we go on about him, me in particular, but he's just such a creative player, such an array of skills, and his work rate is phenomenal, Paul. He deserved this goal.
Oh, he did. I think throughout the game, I mean, his all-round contributions to the team effort was quite outstanding. Like Jesus, he was winning tackles. He was playing incisive passes into the opposition half, into the opposition penalty area. And I also think, well, players who are confident on the ball inspire their teammates to be confident on the ball as well. And also, if you're looking for an early release ball from defence, you can give it to him. He's going to hold it. He's going to do something with it. You're going to maintain possession. I think the goal, I mean, I've watched it a number of times, and if you look, I'm sure you noticed it yourself. We look closely. He almost does like a little step over to get the ball onto his left foot before hitting it into the corner. And it just gave him space. It almost took the defender slightly the wrong way, created an opening. And okay, it took a deflection, but if you don't shoot, you never know what's going to happen. And deflections are part and parcel of football. I've never degrade someone's goal because it took a deflection. The fact it took the shot, it's got enough power to hit the defender and beat your goalkeeper. Deserves credit in its own way.
To be honest, I thought it was going in anyway. Had that
defender
not been there, it would have gone in the opposite corner. It was a great and solid performance. Very, very impressive. Ian Wright said the captain led by example today. His passing, his pressing, his composure in finding space. Mikel Arteta also got on the bandwagon, so he should. He was also full of praise, of his influence, and in difficult moments, he took the ball. That's what he's done. He's really turning this captaincy on its head, because Rio Ferdinand said that maybe in the quiet games, the armband was weighing too heavy on him. Gary Lineker, the king of the potato people and former Spud, said, do you know what baffles me a little bit? How Real Madrid let him go when Modric and Cruz are nearly at the end of their career. He said on Match of the Day, it's a strange one because he's so talented. And we can only echo that, really, because 30 million, when you see what United are paying for these players, it's astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that that's been the best bit of transfer business that Arsenal have done in recent times, because he was the child prodigy, really, wasn't he, when he went from Norwich to Real Madrid? Okay, it didn't quite work out with Real Madrid for him, but then you kind of look at who was in front of him in the team. I know he had a good spell of Real Sociedad as well when he was on loan there. So yeah, he's just a very, very talented player. And and once again, you have to give credit to Arteta for seeing something in Odegaard that brought the qualities he's looking for in a captain. And I think it's been an inspired decision, and so far it's really paying dividends. And you need a captain to lead by example. Captain doesn't always have to be a Tony Adams type vocal screaming and shouting at everyone. Sometimes you can be a captain by leading by example as well, and going and having quiet words with people, encouraging people, like he did with Gabriel after that mistake for the first goal. So he's developing into a really good role model for the rest of the team, but B, a captain who's leading by example.
He did that with Saliba's own goal as well. He got behind him, and I noticed towards the tail end of last season, he did a lot of these little captain things, going around having little words and patting on the back and all that sort of thing. On the strength of that, me and Silent Dave sort of said, oh, he's going to be the captain. And I think about 5 pods from finish last season, we made up a little jingle for him as well. Anyway, let's press on. Enough of our jingles. 86 minutes, Gabriel bundled the ball into the box, into the net. It was a very untypical Arsenal goal, wasn't it? It was sort of backsides and elbows and all that sort of thing. But we have got a tendency to try and walk the ball in the net, so it was quite refreshing. I was thinking, Paul, during that game, I don't know whether you cast your mind back to last season. Bernd Leno was playing for us in goal against Brentford, and he didn't look too comfortable when the
first game of the season.
Yeah, when the defenders were all spread out and the strikers were in there. Sort of, I think one of the goals conceded was where this guy had his arm round Leno, and I was screaming in the pub, going, "Get on him! Get on him! Pressurise him!" And the first time they actually did that was a big bundle of players, wasn't it? And he kind of lost his way. He didn't like it. He'll stop shots from 25 or 30 yards all day long, but if you put him under pressure, he'll crack. And for me, that was the whole reason that we got that goal.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly Leno struggled to deal with that cross, and as you say, you noticed that tendency last season when he was the regular first choice keeper for Arsenal. And, it's a good type of goal to score, really, because it just shows that it doesn't have to be all about fantasy football. I know Arsenal, in terms of set pieces, were very successful last season, and I'm assuming that being worked on the training ground is something we can try in the last 5 minutes or so if we need a goal, and Fulham defenders just didn't seem to know who was going to pick up Gabriel, or whether they thought Leno was going to deal with this. He didn't have to, I don't know. And also, when the ball came down after his initial attempt, he was the first one to react to it as well. He was the first one to just stick his foot out and get it over the line, which I thought was a really, really good indication of his awareness that he was in space, and all it requires just a little touch to get it over the line. And I think, as touched on the stars of the pod, the kind of the synchronicity of the crowd celebration alongside the team celebration just really showed that the team, the supporters, the manager are in a really good place at the moment.
Absolutely. One thing I didn't bring up, Mitrovic, it was a really weird thing. This is for the podcast family as well who were watching. I don't know whether you saw it. Mitrovic was in our box and Jesus was marking him. So you got the biggest lump in a Fulham shirt was marked by one of the smallest Arsenal guys going. And I thought, what? That's baffling. It was absolutely baffling. Some of the, if I had been William Saliba, I would have been on his arse. Or whoever is a 6 footer, Ben White could have done it. Someone like that. I don't know whether you saw it, podcast family. Zinchenko had to be led away from the fourth official after a heated exchange, which was quite nice. We were talking about his passion, which obviously spilled over, and he had to be led away by about 2 Arsenal bods. So that was quite nice. If you've missed that, you can go to my Twitter page, the Highbury Flyer, and look at that. And if you've got anything to say about the podcast, anything to say about Arsenal, you want to say hi or ask a question, it's an Arsenal thing at gmail.com. Now, Paul, you mentioned it. Mikel Arteta's tactical changes during the game. Tomiyasu and Nketiah and Holding, he really got that spot on. I mean, there's been a couple of times that he's made changes and they've been late or they've not been appropriate in my mind. But he got it spot on, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I mean, as you said before, you need a goal, so you bring on an attacker, you take a defender off to try and create more opportunities for the team to progress, and that's the way it worked out. And then classic, managerial tactics. Really, you get the 2-1 lead. There's 4 minutes to go. Well, you don't need to chase the third goal. All you need to do now is solidify the defence, limit the opportunities for the opposition. At some stage, even the last 3 or 4 minutes, there's going to be a chance for the opposition. And there was that opportunity for Chalobah when he was kind of unmarked from I think a free kick came in, and Ramsdale produced a really good save. But yeah, I mean, tactically, that's what you do. You 2-1 up, 3-4 minutes to go, bring on a defender, slow the game down a little bit, and hang on to the lead.
I mean, we did have a couple of lucky bits, didn't we? Ramsdale did pull off 2 really good saves from memory. And I think Ben White put body in the way for one of them, shot on goal, which looked goalward bound. All's well that ends well. It's another 3 points, and we roll over to the next one. Aston Vanilla and Steven Gerrard. But let's do the stats. Yeah, let's hope we beat him for you, Paul. We'll do our best.
No, nothing would give me greater pleasure.
So it was 2-1. The stats are, we'll call Arsenal out first and then Fulham. 22 shots, 11 in reply, 8 shots on target for Arsenal, 3 for Fulham. 72% possession for Arsenal, tells its own story. 28 possession for Fulham. 595 passes as opposed to 223. 85% pass accuracy for Arsenal, 61% for Fulham. Who would you give, Paul, in your impartialness, in your glorious impartialness, man of the match?
Well, I think I'll take the easy choice here. I think Odegaard. I think from start to finish, to me, he offered everything that you want from the player in that type of match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he just bossed it for me.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
ran it. It seemed like there was two of him at one stage. He was left, right. He was picking the ball up. He was pushing forward. He was in the box. He was feeding the channels. I would probably say that's his best performance for Arsenal. There have been a
Yeah.
couple, but that's probably the best.
Yeah, and obviously you watch on a far more regular basis than what I do. But yeah, I just from start
I
to finish
have to. I'm forced since childhood. We can do better. Said Marco Silva. We deserve to get more from this game. They, Arsenal in brackets, didn't have many clear chances. They had 2 goals and both were lucky. I think he's overdoing it there. They played their part for sure, but if you don't put the ball in the back of the net, and we were under considerable pressure at home, being on top of the table. Man City was playing as well, so we had to get some sort of result. And everyone's welcome to their opinion, but you're wrong, Marco. Sort yourself out.
Obviously, I remember Marco Silva from his time as Everton manager, and there's still a school of thought that kind of thinks he should have been given more time rather than being sacked when he was. But he did kind of have a tendency to lose games where the team had taken the lead and he couldn't hang on to the lead. I think at the end, that was kind of his downfall during his time at Goodison, the ability, not having the ability to see out games from when you take the 1 goal advantage. I think you saw that again on Saturday. But I think as a manager, he is much better now than what he was when he was dismissed by Everton.
Yeah, I think that Fulham will have a reasonable season. I can't see him going down. There's too many other candidates. Mind you, it is a really weird Premier League again, isn't it? At the start of I know it's only 4 games, but at the bottom, it's quite interesting again. And I hope we have that right until the end. We're going to deal with the media, Paul, because all this, celebration, please. They're over-celebrating. This is a 2-1 win against newly promoted Fulham. That was Richard Keys and Andy Gray in their TV programme. Keys began, well played. You came back to win it and keep the 100% record intact. But they haven't won the title tonight. They've won a London derby. Let's not get too carried away. We're 4 games into the season. This has got to go away, hasn't it? A goal is a goal. I mean, you ought to have seen me. I was like flying around, and they had to call me back and tell me to shut up. But you're entitled. It doesn't matter whether it's the bottom, the middle, or the top, or if it's a London derby, or it's a final of the Champions League. You're entitled to celebrate, and the fans joined in as well. I don't really understand. I think it's Keys and Gray were up there on Sky, weren't they? Got booted off because they're misogynist, sexist behaviour, and now they're down here, and it's a case of trying to generate another audience. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it is probably a case of trying to generate another talking point to get all sorts of social media reactions, some more clicks and things like that. I was thinking as well, I mean, I know how you can criticise fans for over-celebrating, because football is such a passionate game that there are enough dark times during the course of the season when you're trudging out the stadium and after abysmal silence after witnessing
and it's hacking it down.
Yeah. When you was a spineless display, and when you factor in as well the amount of money people pay to watch a football game these days, I know the prices are really quite high. Factor in your travel costs and all that. Why the hell should you not celebrate a victory? I really worry that. Are we having like a grading system here that you can only celebrate victories against certain teams? Like you can only celebrate a victory like against the top 60. I don't care who Everton be. If we scrape a 1-0 win the last minute at home against Southampton, I'm as ecstatic as if we've beaten Tottenham 1-0. So to me, it doesn't matter about the opposition. It's about the fan experience. You've had very enjoyable afternoon. You've seen your team come back from a game that they could have lost. They've shown outstanding qualities of endurance, resilience, perseverance to get the result. You scored the winning goal with 5 minutes to go. What the hell? You should. There should be, it should be out your seat, jumping up, celebrating the goal, because that's what you're a football fan for. You're not there as a dispassionate, disinterested observer. You're there to support the team, and you support the team by getting behind them and celebrating and savouring every minute of the victory.
Well, I do apologise to the woman in the 3 cups who was sitting next to me when that goal went in, because I think I sort of blew her hearing aid up or something, because she was like, ah. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You pay all that money. It doesn't matter who you're playing. You get the result. You've got to celebrate it. In reply, Laura Woods from Squawk Sport said, genuinely, what is the point of football if you can't enjoy it in the moment? She wrote in a reply on a tweet, it's just a happy team with happy fans who will probably go out tonight and get shit-faced. That's the point. Laura, we love you.
That is exactly the point. And if there's a TV job coming up in Sky Sports soon, I think she should be under consideration.
Absolutely. Yeah, like watching Woodsy, and she's got the ability to put down people quite quickly, especially Tottenham fans. She shuts them down quite quickly. Talking about the media, Piers Morgan was lapping up Arteta's Arsenal, which is unusual because he wants him out, and he said that he was picking really poor players and all the rest of it. So I had a little dabble. I replied to Piers and said, fair weather fan, Piers. Embarrassing. Make your mind up, fella. Stop being a reactionary, publicity-seeking tumbleweed. He hasn't replied.
Has he blocked you?
I'll live in hope. I won't sort of check my emails or anything.
That's always a badge of honour when you're blocked by Piers Morgan.
It was 97 years ago, 1925. Herbert Chapman took charge of Arsenal and led the club to its first FA Cup success and 2 First Division titles. His work at Arsenal resulted in us being a dominant team in the 1930s. Just chuck that in because I tapped it out on purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, not to mention, he previously achieved the triple with Huddersfield Town before he came to Arsenal. And he was also manager of Leeds City, who went defunct. And that's how he ended up getting the Huddersfield job.
Yeah, I mean, he's in the history books, isn't he? And he will never fade away. It'll be like George Graham and Arsene Wenger. And hopefully Mikel Arteta at some point as well.
Yeah.
But we're a long way from there. Let's talk about shirts, Paul. Too many, too often, too expensive. I mean, it seems like Arsenal have got another shirt out every week.
I think the answer to all those points is yes, yes, and yes. Quite simply. I mean, I admire the loyalty of people who shell out for the 3rd shirt, knowing that the most is going to be worn once, twice a season. It just. As you probably gathered from my age, my background, I'm quite a football traditionalist, and it really frustrates me when, if you're playing an away game and there's no need for the kit change, you change it just to get the second shirt some more TV coverage and to try and generate more sales. I never quite bought into having to change the colour of the kit needlessly when you're playing away, and yeah, I mean. The shirts are just absolutely ridiculously expensive. I mean, sadly, well, not sadly, but I mean, certainly, you may have some recall of this, Tom. But in the mid-80s, football shirts weren't de rigueur item of fashion at grounds. Because probably if you're an away fan, you're putting your life in your hands by wearing one, and B, they're impossible to get hold of. You'd have to order them from the club, or there might be a mail order outlet selling them, and so it's been this sea change into I always have. I was a 10-year-old at the 1966 World Cup in Goodison, and Brazil played the 3 games there. And that was the only time as a kid I'd seen supporters wearing the team shirts, because all the Brazil fans wore the shirts and they looked absolutely fantastic with the tan skin, the shirt, and the youthfulness about them. And at that time, if you want like an Everton shirt, you'd have to mail order the club, and to get a badge, and then buy a blue shirt from the shop and sew the badge on to try and palm off as an Everton shirt. I think that's the same for most clubs as well. So this kind of transformation in the kit sales it's just it's quite bizarre the way it's come about. One of the things that does cause me some concern sometimes is I was at the Charming Newcastle game on Wednesday night for the League Cup, and as we walked towards the ground, me and my son, two young lads walked past wearing Man City shirts. They go, "What? You live in Birkenhead? Why are you wearing a Man City shirt?" There really is no need,
Local fans.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, you can see they just jumped on the bandwagon there, but yeah, way too expensive, far too much, and they're just, I don't know, you do sometimes think that the whole design has been created by someone who's had a very weak pass at GCSE arts or something like that, because where they get these ideas from, and there may have been a nice spent on the XE tablet, some that I'm not quite sure, but there are also absolutely bizarre designs out there that bear no relation to the heritage or the culture of the club.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a case of shopping around, isn't it? Because you can get retro shirts now for about 35 quid, which I think is reasonable. That's not too bad. But when you look at, I've just recently bought the black and bronze. We call it the stealth at the pod. I bought that. That's up for grabs at 115 quid, between 90 and 115 quid. Yeah. Now, if you imagine you've got 4 kids and they all support Arsenal as well, and you're a working man, you're not earning a fortune, but you're making ends meet. It's huge. But the thing is, sorry, Paul. The thing is, there are companies out there like DH Gates, and they're in China, I think, and they're doing shirts for like 16 quid. Arsenal have the dearest shirts going. So if they could just bring them down, they'd knock all the competition out. But they're not. They're going for maximum. Now, I understand it's a commercial world. I understand that clubs have got to invest all this money back in the club and into players as well. And this is millions of pounds which are generated from shirt sales and the names on the back and all the rest of it. But it has got to that stage where it's just, think about what you're doing. We don't need the training shirt. We don't need the shirt that you turn up and polish your boots with. We don't need the 6 away kits. And there is a cause, Paul, as well. Someone has written into me called Jim, saying that the departure from the traditional shirt as well, because the away shirt for Arsenal was yellow and blue, as you well know, and they're offended by the pink and the black one. Now, I don't necessarily go along with that. I don't mind about the pink. I might get one eventually. I'm not really sold on it, but I wanted that black one. It's like a real standout shirt. We are departing, aren't we, from the tradition of the clubs with the slogans and everything else.
I think more and more the different varieties of replica shirts, the more the fashion item than the sportswear item as well. And haven't made all that criticism of the cost of shirts myself. Obviously, I bought the Everton shirt at the start of the season. I've done that for the past 20 years or so. It's one of those things. But yeah, and occasionally, like you, Tom, if there's a second shirt that I like or a third shirt that I like, I will go out and buy it. But because there's no consistency of design, the quality of the design varies from season to season, so that will dictate whether that becomes a second purchase or not.
Well, earlier on in the audio version of this podcast, we do 2 versions. This will be the unedited version, but earlier on in the audio version, we do the top 5 Arsenal shirts, home and away. So it'd be interesting to see if your shirt is in there. Right, what have we got coming up? We've got Aston Villa and Manchester United, so we're really tight for space with these pods because we've got these games quick and fast, no gaps in between. How do you see us getting on against Aston Villa, Paul?
Yeah, well, as we kind of touched upon previously, Tom, I'm delighted to see Villa's travails at the moment. Nothing could give me greater joy or happiness. I think Jello's struggling there at the moment. Well, Summers at Birmingham University last year, so he had a lot of Villa fans who he was friends with, and they were just not totally convinced by the direction that Gerrard was taking the club in. And nothing they've seen so far this season has convinced them that that viewpoint was wrong. I think he's struggling to get. I don't think he knows what his best formation is. Whether at Rangers he had a lot of success with a 4-3-3 formation, he hasn't quite used that as Villa. He's gone for the two strikers instead. He doesn't even know how to use Coutinho. He's dropped Buendia, who most Villa fans think is their best midfield player, for Coutinho to squeeze him into the side. So I think there's a lot of concern there that maybe he's struggling to find a winning formula, which as a neutral is delightful to see. But yeah, it's
not like he's not been backed though, Paul, is it? They have backed him. They've backed him solidly in the market.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they have, and I think at the time you can see the logic behind the appointment because he did a reasonable job at Rangers. Although I'm delighted that Van Bronckhorst has actually done slightly better and said to get him to the European final, which Gerrard never did. And I think fans want a big name manager. He kind of ticked all the boxes in that respect. But I think the problem always, if you appoint Gerrard, is for his point of view, he's treading water for what he thinks he's going to walk into the Liverpool job at some stage. So you always going to have a doubt about his commitment to the team. And I don't think he responds to criticism from the fans very well. So I think it's going to be quite fascinating to see how this develops in the next few weeks. If they were to gather a few more wins and the pressure's off, he buys himself time to after the World Cup. But certainly, if Gabriel Jesus was to conjure up a hat-trick in the game this week and put more pressure on the Aston Villa, that would be delightful.
Yeah, he's for me, I've not been convinced about his management style, and apparently there are rumours of tensions and disagreements. You hear this when someone's not doing well, so it might be a load of old rubbish. But do you think that Arsenal have got enough to see him off, Paul?
I think so. Just one more thing on the job. I mean, he still lives in Liverpool, commutes to Birmingham as well, which I think is quite a strange thing. If you commit to the club, you go and live down there. Yeah, I've also got nothing to Villa, undoubtedly. Yeah, I think that's why Saturday's game with Fulham was such a good barrier for Arsenal to overcome, because I think Villa are going to sit back, they're going to defend. You kind of saw last season with the performance against Man City when they took a 2-0 lead, that they have got goals within the team. I think Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings are both really good strikers if you give them the service to thrive upon. So there will be a threat, but I just think that's Villa at the moment. If you can get the first goal against them, I think heads go down, team spirit lessens. I think the resilience goes, and I think you can go on to get quite a comfortable victory. So at the moment, I can't see anything but 3 points for Arsenal there.
Do you think Gerrard and Lampard are like the media darlings and they've been overhyped as sort of potential up-and-coming managers?
Well, obviously, I have a different view about Lampard than what I would do about Gerrard. I think I think they're two completely different managers with two completely different skill sets and two completely different relations with the fans. In terms of Gerrard, yeah, I think he's liked by the media. He's certainly got friends in the media. Let's face it, I'd say a good 6% of other people in the media have Liverpool connections or Liverpool bias. So yeah, he's in a difficult position at the moment, and I just really hope that Arsenal can add to his turmoil this week.
Very uncharitable of you, Paul. Really
I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. People might not recognise it as such.
Well, I went mad on the last one because I said that would be 4-1 to Arsenal, and I bit off a bit more than I could chew. I do apologise to everyone. I got carried away over celebrating before we got there, and subsequently learned a lesson. So my prediction for this game: 2-0. I'm going to go 2-0. Right, so let's move on. I think it's.
I'll go for 3-1, Tom.
You got to go 3-1.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course it's Arsenal. Of course, Paul. Why would we be doing this otherwise? Then it's at the weekend. It's Manchester United. Now, this is where we start seeing what we've got, isn't it? It's, on the table, we've got Man United. They're in a bit of a quandary, really. It's quite staggering, isn't it, Paul? The amount of money they're spending. Apparently, 85 million on Anthony. They've already done Martinez, 56.7 million. And then Casemiro, age 30, 70 million plus. Do we think that Man United are kind of trying to put the old plaster over the gaping wound? Does it?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable theory to go with. Yeah, I mean, certainly, you look at some of the players that United have signed. I mean, apart from Casemiro, I think most average football fans may not have heard of the other three signings that they brought in from Holland. So I'm kind of wondering, what's Ten Hag's philosophy here? Is it that he doesn't want to be in a situation where he's got a dressing room full of big time players who's got to have disharmony in the dressing room? Has he deliberately gone for players he knows from the Dutch league who know and respect him, so he knows that when they come to the club, they're going to buy into his plan, his philosophy, his way forward? Now, that is, could be considered to be quite a risky strategy, because you're bringing in 4 or 5 key players with scant Premier League experience who've not really played at the top level of football for a long period of time, and then you're looking at them to build your team around, and that as a process is going to take a number of years. And I think sometimes as well, I'm still not sure who sanctioned the purchase of Casemiro, because he's the antithesis of what all the other previous buyers have been, younger players from the Dutch league. So, as you say, given his age, it's almost on par. If in quotes, Mesut Ozil here, when he was given like quite a long, lengthy contract when he was about 31, 32. It's almost like a similar sort of thing that you bring a 30-year-old in who you give him a long contract. So from his point of view, he can get away with average performances because he's got the contract to fall back upon. So it just seems to be a bit of a gamble. I mean, from what I've seen United so far this season, obviously I thought they played really well against Liverpool. I was thrilled to see that showed a bit of commitment, a bit of resilience, and they had a game plan. I watched a bit of the game against Southampton, and they were back to just being a very, very average team against a really poor Southampton side, who they could easily have lost against as well. So I think it's going to be quite a stern test of Arsenal's abilities here. But I think Arsenal goes this game as favourites. I think United. I think in terms of putting the team together, if you kind of see it as like a roadmap sort of thing, I think Arsenal are far further down the roadmap of getting the team together than what Man United are at the moment as well. And whether Ronaldo's still there on Saturday or not is another factor that could have an influence on the game as well. So I don't think a draw would be too bad a result for Arsenal, but I think if you're looking to set a marker for where the season is going, that's I think going to Old Trafford and getting a win really lays down a message to other teams in the league that look, this is Arsenal, 6 games on the round here, 6 wins. You kind of setting standards there for others to follow.
Yeah, I agree totally. Casemiro, by the way, he's no mark though. He's gone for the experience, hasn't he? Because La Liga, he's won that 3 times. Copa del Rey, he's won that. Super Copa has won that 3 times. UEFA Champions League, he's won 5 times. UEFA Super Cup 3 times, and the World Cup 3 times. So you can see his CV. It speaks for itself. But 30 years of age, trying to rebuild. And it's almost like trying to put the wheels on the cart once the horse is headed off, isn't it? It's kind of like that. It feels a bit weird. But enough of them. I mean, we don't want to talk about them all night. I mean, heaven forbid, it's an Arsenal podcast. I think it's going to be, as you say, a bit of a marker. I wouldn't be disappointed with a draw, although some would disagree with me. We're still learning. We're still learning what we're all about. But I can see us going up there and snatching it. Ronaldo brings a different vibe because if he's playing, he does love the Arsenal. He's kind of that sort of factor that you can't legislate for. He's a prowler. He'll make something out of nothing. He is a superb player. And you can understand as well, Paul, why he wants to get out. He's 37. He needs to play at the top flight. When you've got people like Scott McTominay inside, you're not exactly, going to be tussling about with Real Madrid, are you?
No, exactly. I think one thing that would help Arsenal at the weekend would be if United to change their team selection and put Harry Maguire back in the defensive lineup, because I could just see Jesus absolutely tormenting him from start to finish.
The thing is, I was talking with someone about Harry Maguire, and he's a dirty bastard, and he's very limited, isn't he? People go on and say
That's
he's
being kind.
yeah, they say he's a really good player and all the rest of it. He has his moments like any footballer, but he does this thing where he goes under a player. He did it in one of the games last season, and I think it was Nketiah. So they both jumped up, but Maguire kind of went underneath and then kind of flipped him. He's a dirty, dirty bugger, honestly. And I can't really understand. Apparently, Chelsea are in for him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Really? Do they really need a Harry Maguire? They had a great defence at one stage, but two of them buggered off.
They did indeed, yeah. When you're paying £70 million for Fofana, who's had one decent season in the Premier League, that's a massive gamble.
I'll tell you what I want to talk about quickly. We've got 4 minutes, Paul, before you got to dash and do whatever you got to do. But Leicester City, I know we've spoken about them before, but they're rock bottom of the table at the minute. I don't understand the position with Leicester. They've got money. They've got money to spend. They were on the crest of a wave not too long ago. They were Premier League winners, FA Cup winners, a good side up against any opponent, and it's all gone wrong. Top manager keeping his head down, not saying much, but he doesn't look bloody happy, does he?
No, and you can't blame him. I mean, as we said in this pod a couple of weeks ago, the decision to let Kasper Schmeichel go, I just thought was really strange, because in any successful team, the goalkeeper is the linchpin. And with his experience, he's been a top-class goalkeeper for a number of years, Kasper Schmeichel. So to let him go, I just found totally bizarre. Unless they've kind of, they haven't really built on that, that success under Rodgers. I mean, people kind of forget that they won the FA Cup 2 seasons ago, I think. So, they've been participating in Europe on a regular basis.
I actually thought, Paul, sorry, that would be the launch pad. You've got a bit of silverware, and everyone looks on the same page, but apparently not.
Well, they won the FA Cup, they won the Charity Shield as well, didn't they? So they did have silverware then, and I think. What's gone on with Leicester's finances, I've no idea, but there seems to be a massive reluctance to trust Rodgers with the money, or to spend the money. And what the rationale behind that is, I have no idea. But I think if they can hang on to Maddison, I think that makes a big difference too. And Vardy, as you know, when he plays as Arsenal, is always a constant goal threat. So I think there's enough goals in the team to give them a fighting chance. But if you don't bring in reinforcements before the deadline, I think it's going to be a very, very difficult and challenging season. And it wouldn't surprise me if Rodgers decided to walk at some stage while his reputation is still intact there, because most clubs outside the top 6 would be interested in Rodgers as a manager. I still think Aston Villa, if Rodgers became available and Gerrard wasn't delivering the business, would be looking at Rodgers thinking, this is somebody we could bring in who's going to develop players and move the club forward. So it's going to be quite intriguing to see how masses develop at Leicester over the next few weeks.
See, this is what I like about Paul. He's already seen Steven Gerrard sacked, and he's replaced him with Brendan Rodgers. This is brilliant stuff. This is what we want. Paul, thanks ever so much for a great pod. We covered just about everything we possibly could, and hopefully I'll see you for the next one. I didn't give my prediction. I did, didn't I? I thought we'd have a draw or a sneaky win against Man United. Got carried away again. Celebration police are outside knocking on the door. Turn down the lights. Turn off the music. Paul, see you later. Thanks very much.
Cheers, Tom. Thanks for having the show. Enjoyed the conversation again. Covered a whole range of topics there, so thanks very much. Look forward to the next one.
You're welcome, mate. See you soon.